We're at stables for the horse riding and wouldn't think we'd be able to get anything Spectrum related, but we did. One of the things that you can always expect to find at stables is big piles of horse manure, and I've found one. It's Kung Fu Master for the Spectrum, and horse poo, same thing. Okay, I think from the tone of the intro that you've just seen, you can tell already what my views on the game that we're going to have a look at today are. Kung Fu Master, US Gold Sinclair ZX Spectrum, released in 1986 and based on the Data East arcade game of the same name from 1984. The premise of it is that you play Thomas and your girlfriend Sylvia, as girlfriends in all these things tend to do, manage to get herself kidnapped by Mr. Big, and you've got to go and rescue her by going to his temple, etc., and beating the shit out of everyone that comes between you and that goal, whilst avoiding having the shit kicked out of you in return. Now, this actual game, it's the cassette I actually bought in 1986. I haven't got a clue why I bought it. I didn't even particularly like the arcade game. I know it was popular, but I didn't like it that much. And it was one of the first times I'd ever been allowed sort of out on my own to go where I wanted to and spend some money. And I got on the bus from Dymchurch up to Folkestone, where the big WH Smiths and Boots were the big sort of places at the time in those in Folkestone that you could buy computer games. And I don't know why, I came home with Kung Fu Master, and I loaded it up, I played it, and my heart sank. And other than that day and once on the following day, those are the only times this game has ever been loaded into my Spectrum, this cassette, because it's just abysmal, and you'll see that as we go through it. Even to this day, I'm still not trusted now because of this to go out on my own with money or a card. So I have to go and have a helper with me, make sure I don't do it. Hello, can I help you? Sorry, we've got a pitch invader. What's up? Hello. What you doing? So my little hound thing is just down there, just snuck into the room, as he does. We've just come back from a walk, and he's a bit smelly. He's rolled in something. I think he's rolled in Kung Fu Master, so he's definitely going to have a wash and a sand blast, I think, aren't you? Anyway, let's get on with it, and please don't hate me for what I'm about to do to you. Okay, so now we're at the start of Kung Fu Master, the loading screen, which isn't bad, and now into the start menu. I'm just going to define the keys, which I'll use Q, A, O, P, and N and M for punch and kick. We'll see how that goes. Okay, there we go. Get those done. Press enter to finish, and then we'll go into the game. S to start. Now, appreciate as this is an arcade conversion, you know, that the developers are sort of somewhat hamstrung by what they can actually do with the game in terms of design. But from the off, I mean, you can just see that, you know, this is one of those games that shouldn't have been attempted. I mean, the attribute clash it is just awful. The character design is uninspiring. Scrolling is jerky. The music is downright horrible. And there's just, you know, if there's a game that shouldn't have been attempted, probably this is one of the sort of contenders for that title. It's just has no redeeming features whatsoever. It's just an awful game, and I consider it as one of the worst Spectrum games I've ever played. Certainly one of the worst ones I ever actually had the misfortune to spend money on. I mean, just look at the way the purple bleeds into the white suit that the character's wearing, and if you don't get your punch and kick or kick timed absolutely correctly, you just end up standing there sort of like blocked in against the enemies, losing energy all the while that you're doing it, and it's really frustrating. I mean, you can see there's a counter at the top that's counting down to sort of show you how far you are from the end of the level, and it's like counts down from 2000, and I never managed to get further than sort of 1500 in it. It's just abysmal. I'm going to do a little bit of a chat afterwards about attribute clashes. It was one of the problems that the Spectrum had sort of in the early days, but sort of later on, you know, some developers managed some pretty ingenious ways of getting around it, and you know, some Spectrum games are actually sort of really colourful. Games like Cabal or Cable, I never know quite how to say that one. Dandare 3, Savage, really sort of colourful games, and minimal sort of colour clash, and they sort of get around the Spectrum's colour limitations superbly. And I'll do an extra bit at the end of this game, sort of showing that you know, I paid, I think it was $7.95 for this, and you know, that's $7.95 I'm never ever going to get back. And like I said, I've only ever loaded this into the Spectrum twice. I'm playing it through an emulator on my PC at the moment, just so I can record it on screen. Just it's a hopeless conversion, and you know, just because it's on the Spectrum doesn't mean to say that you had to feel that, you know, you couldn't do a good conversion. There's thousands of, well, not thousands, but there's loads of arcade conversions on the Spectrum that are absolutely fantastic. You know, where do you start? Chase HQ, Commando, Cable, Cabal, however you say it. Renegade, the first Renegade, the first game in the series, just wonderful arcade conversions. Gauntlet, you know, there's no reason why you know, we have to sort of accept or put up with crap like this, because it really is a game that the word abysmal was invented for. It just makes me cry sort of thinking that I did waste my meagre pocket money, not only in getting the bus all the way up to Folkestone, but then once I got to Folkestone, buying this pile of crap. I don't usually like to criticise programmers, etc., because, you know, even making a bad game is way beyond any expertise I ever had. But I've paid money out for this, and so I think I'm entitled to be a bit vocal in the way that I express my dissatisfaction with the product, because it is a pile of shit. There's There's no two ways about it. Okay, so that was Kung Fu Master for the Spectrum. I'm gonna you could tell I was like pulling no punches there. It's a truly abysmal piece of software. Now, I mentioned a couple of times in there attribute clash. Now, that's the kind of horrible mess that occurs when if you saw that the main character is all white. The main baddies are sort of purple, and then there's another sort of light blue dart wielding baddie who sort of like comes along every now and then. As the characters get closer to each other, you'll see that, you know, the purple from the baddies bleeds across to your character, and he turns purple instead. And that's a kind of artifact of one of the designs of the Spectrum. And attribute clash is something that is something that the Spectrum's known for, and was always used as a source of ammunition in playground arguments from like Commodore 64, Amstrad, etc. owners always poking fun at the Spectrum about attribute clash, and basically my understanding of it is that the Spectrum can only display 2 colours in every square of 8 by 8 pixels, and any more than that and the whole thing just degenerates into a sort of pile of graphical vomit, etc. Objects take on you know, the sort of the colours of an object they might pass in the background, etc. And some of it's really ugly, as you can tell. But there were some fantastic workarounds. You know, the Spectrum had some amazing looking games like, you know, like Firelord, Robin of the Wood, Nodes of Yesod, just names that just flooded into my head just then, which were really colourful, and where the programmers managed to get around that problem with only sort of like minimal clash, etc. Now, to show you that in action, I'm going to just finish off with a couple of minutes of playing another game. The game is Dan Dare 3, and it's one of the most colourful games on the Spectrum, I think. And it really is amazing the way that the programmers have managed to get that amount of colour into the game. It really is a lovely looking game. It's not a review of that game, it's just a gameplay segment to sort of show what the Spectrum was capable of. And whilst I accept that Dan Dare 3 came out 3 years after Kung Fu Master did, you know, the technique was still possible, I suppose. It could have been done. Perhaps it might have been unfair of me to compare 2 completely different types of game. I don't know. But you know, the Spectrum is capable of far better than what was on show in Kung Fu Master. It really, you know, if you had been in boots in sort of like 1984, whatever, 1986, looking to buy a game or a computer and the Spectrum was on display and they were playing Kung Fu Master, you'd have gone, no, I'm not buying one of them, that looks awful. Anyway, let's just finish off and go to Dan Dare 3. I'm absolutely rubbish at that game, so this is just a gameplay video to show you what could be done with the Spectrum. Okay, thanks for that. Okay, so here we are at Dan Dare 3, 1989 release from Virgin. Obviously it's the sequel to Dan Dare 2 and Dan Dare. Doesn't take an awful lot of working out for that one. And this is just to show, you know, what could be done to work around the spectrum's limitations regarding colour. And as you'll see, I mean, it just looks absolutely fantastic. I make no apologies for being absolutely crap at this game. I'm crap at most games I tend to play, but that doesn't stop me enjoying them. I must be pretty patient. But you just look there, you know, the colourful explosions that are on display there, the animation of the jetpack, the Mekon, the detail of the shots landing there, the big red explosions. It's just wonderful. The blue of the sort of plasma ray gun that Dan's using there, and again, lovely explosion. It just really is a wonderful game to look at. And you know, as I sort of said, indicative of what could be done, what the machine was capable of, albeit that you had to sort of be a little bit imaginative when it came to working out how to get this level of colour into a game. And you know, like I said in the previous segment, I appreciate that there's 3 years between Kung Fu Master and this, but even so, some games, I think Kung Fu Master is just one of those games that, you know, someone should have looked at it and said, you know what, perhaps we shouldn't. Perhaps we should just leave this one. This is beyond us. Until, you know, people develop techniques like this, or the techniques on showing games like Light Force, Savage, etc. Just because, you know, it's an embarrassment playing Kung Fu Master. It just really is. But anyway, I'm going to finish up now and just let you enjoy the rest of this wonderfully colourful game that I am useless at. You should see me on Call of Duty. I'm even worse at that. Okay, thanks for that. Goodbye.